When speaking about the love of husband and wife, and when speaking about conjugal fidelity and conjugal fecundity, the Catechism speaks beautifully about the gift of a child. Large families are traditionally seen as a blessing from God and a sign of the parents' generosity. Couples who experience sterility suffer greatly, and research aimed at finding a remedy for sterility is praiseworthy as long as it is in keeping with the dignity of the human person. Techniques that dissociate husband and wife are greatly immoral. These include a sperm or ovum donation from outside the marriage, the use of a surrogate uterus. These techniques infringe on the child's right to be born of a father and mother known to him and bound to each other in marriage. And these techniques also betray the spouse's right to become a father and mother only through each other. Also immoral are certain techniques between husband and wife. Techniques are immoral when the sexual act is dissociated from the procreative act. When the life and identity of the embryo is entrusted into the hands of doctors and biologists, technology can dominate over the origin and destiny of the human person. Only respect for the link between the meanings of the conjugal act and respect for the unity of the human being make possible procreation in conformity with the dignity of the human person. A child is not a right, but a gift. The child has specific rights, among which include the right to be the fruit of the specific act of the conjugal love of his parents, and to be respected as a person from the moment of his conception. Sterility is not an absolute evil. Spouses who still suffer from infertility after exhausting legitimate medical procedures should unite themselves with the Lord's cross, the source of all spiritual fecundity. They can give expression to their generosity by adopting abandoned children or performing demanded services for others. The Catechism makes clear that children are a gift and that couples who struggle with achieving pregnancy are to be given great compassion and understanding. Couples who experience difficulties do best to seek out the help of qualified medical personnel who act in accord with the teaching of the Church. New techniques seem to be available with every passing year, and so it's always important to stay up to date with those things that might be of help in bringing a child into the world in a manner in keeping with the teachings of the Church. The Catechism speaks about offenses against the dignity of marriage. Adultery. Adulterous relationships offend against the marriage bond, even if only one party is married. Adultery is forbidden absolutely. Christ condemns adultery of mere desire, for adultery is an injustice against the marriage covenant and against the rights of the other spouse. An adulterous person compromises the good of human generation and the welfare of children who need their parents' stable union. The Catechism speaks also of divorce. Jesus insists that the intention of the Creator be respected in regard to the indissolubility of marriage. He abrogated accommodations for divorce that had been later introduced into the law. A ratified and consummated marriage cannot be dissolved by any human power or for any reason other than death. Separation of the spouses may be permitted under certain circumstances. Certainly if one spouse is suffering violence at the hand of the other, separation is appropriate, seeking, of course, the counsel of one's pastor. If civil divorce remains the only possible way of ensuring certain legal rights, the care of the children, or the protection of inheritance, it can be tolerated and does not constitute a moral offense. But apart from the cases mentioned above, divorce is a grave offense. It claims to break an indissoluble union. It does injury to the covenant of salvation of which sacramental marriage is the sign. Remarriage does further damage, for it places the remarried spouse in a situation of public and permanent adultery. Divorce introduces disorder into the family and into society, brings harm to the spouse left behind and to the children, and by extension it becomes a plague on society. There can be a spouse who is an innocent victim of a civil divorce. In this case, the innocent spouse has not broken the moral law. There is a grave difference between a spouse who is unjustly abandoned after trying to be faithful to the marriage covenant and a spouse whose sins destroy a valid marriage. The Catechism speaks of other offenses against the dignity of marriage. Polygamy is not in accord with the moral law, as it is against God's plan that calls for a husband and wife to give themselves to each other in a total and exclusive way. Incest is a grave offense, for it corrupts family relationships and marks a regression toward animality. Sexual abuse by adults on children or adolescents is also a grave offense, for it physically and morally harms and scars the young. A free union is an offense against the dignity of marriage and is contrary to the idea of family and fidelity. In fact, the expression free union is fallacious. What can union mean when the partners make no commitment to one another, each exhibiting a lack of trust in the other, in himself, or in the future? A trial marriage, cohabitation with the intent to marry, is often entered into with good intentions. Nevertheless, it cannot ensure fidelity nor protect the relationship from inconstancy or desires or whim. Carnal union is morally legitimate only when a definitive community of life between a man and woman has been established. Human love does not tolerate trial marriages. It demands a total and definitive gift of persons to one another.